Am I the jerk for not learning Spanish? My father, Jim, is in a relationship with Clara, who has 3 sons aged 6, 13, and 15. We moved in together last year. Clara is originally from a Spanish-speaking country, and her 2 older sons were born there as well. They moved to this country about 8 years ago, so her youngest son was born here. My father speaks fluent Spanish for work. Clara and her sons speak Spanish as their first language, with English as their second language. I do not speak Spanish at all. Clara's sons speak Spanish to each other at home but switch to English if they specifically want to talk to me. Clara will sometimes try to get them to speak English so I can understand everything they are talking about, but they push back against this as they prefer talking in Spanish. Clara will forget herself and talk in Spanish, even addressing me before realizing what she is doing. I do not mind this. I really do not care what they are talking about even if I am in the room, so I will tune them out to use my phone, study, or whatever. If they want to talk to me, they can speak English. My father and Clara really want me to learn Spanish though. They have tried to get me to study it at school, but I chose another language. Then they said that I could study it outside school, but that is a lot of time and effort I would rather use on other things. Clara has said she can teach me casually and will occasionally try to get me to repeat words or phrases in Spanish, like if I ask her to pass the salt or something, which I find annoying and do not engage. This has got worse lately as some of Clara's family visited a few weeks ago and do not speak English at all, so I did not really engage with them either. I get that Clara and her sons prefer to talk in Spanish at home as they have to speak in English at work and school, but I do not want to waste a lot of time learning a language just for their benefit. Plus, if my father and Clara break up in the future, it is even more of a waste. My father and Clara say I am being unreasonable and should want to learn another language to help us integrate as a family. It's perfectly understandable to feel frustrated about the pressure to learn Spanish, especially if you're not interested. However, having people at home who are fluent in the language is an invaluable resource that might be beneficial in the long run. Learning Spanish isn't a waste of time and could be very useful, especially when job hunting. It's important that your dad and Clara make an effort to include you in conversations rather than just insisting you learn the language. Am I the jerk for only thinking about myself? I am in my early 20s, and the talk about my marriage has been going on since last year. I traveled to South Asia with my family in early 2023. My aunt on my father's side and her mother-in-law, who had always despised me, were acting so nice to me. I was skeptical but not smart enough to figure out their scheme. My father returned to South Asia in late 2023, alone this time. His sister was crying in front of him, begging that I marry her son. My father told her that I am still studying and that I will be able to decide whether or not to marry her son. This is what my mother told me. I've been confused and crying myself to sleep every day since I found out about the conversations. Although I trust my mother's statements and my father's intentions, everyone in South Asia is spreading the word that my marriage has been fixed. Although I believe in my father, I am afraid of black magic, which is widespread in South Asia. When my father returned from South Asia last year, he was influenced by black magic. I'm afraid of being forced to marry by my father. I still have 4 to 5 years of schooling to go, and the person my father's family wants me to marry is illiterate. He makes barely enough money to get by. I told my mother and aunt, who live with us outside of South Asia, that I will not marry that person. But everyone on my father's side is pressuring my mother and telling her that if I don't agree to marry in my father's side, everyone will get my mother kicked out. My mother does not want me to marry into my father's family or from her side. She understands that everyone back in South Asia is solely wanting my father's money. My father adores his siblings, but they are all solely interested in his money and want my siblings to settle on my father's side so that all of the money may be theirs. I do not want my or my siblings' lives to be wrecked by marrying ignorant and illiterate people with a narrow-minded worldview. I can't just go to my father and tell him that I won't marry in his family because he has never discussed my or my siblings' marriages in front of us. If I do, he will think I'm desperate to marry and have little interest in my academics. So, am I the antagonist for only worrying about myself? I understand that if I do not marry into my father's family, all of our relationships will be broken, and my mother would suffer the most. You're not a jerk for worrying about your future and well-being. It's understandable to feel scared and anxious in a situation like this, especially when cultural and family pressures are involved. Wanting to protect your education and future while avoiding a marriage that doesn't align with your values or aspirations is not selfish. It's responsible. If possible, continue to communicate your feelings and concerns with your mother and other trusted family members. Am I the jerk for not posting my best friend on my Instagram story when they didn't post me on theirs? I need some external advice and opinions on whether I am in the wrong. Everyone I have asked and shared this story with has said that I am in the right, but I am still not so sure and feel bad. I am a 17-year-old female. My best friend, a 16-year-old female, and I met about 2.5 years ago. I do not remember specifically how we were introduced to each other, but we instantly clicked and have been inseparable ever since. About 4 months ago, she got a boyfriend, a 17-year-old male who is in my class. I was ecstatic for both of them, seeing as they have liked each other for almost a year now. I would like to congratulate myself, as I feel that I played a little bit of matchmaker for the both of them. However, in recent months, she has become more and more distant because she has been hanging out with him more, which I am completely okay with. They are in a pretty loving relationship, and it is understandable to hang out with your partner considerably more. My boyfriend and I hang out a lot too. About 5 weeks ago, she posted on her Instagram story with an appreciation post, chain post template, as I am going to call it. The story was a photo of her and her boyfriend, and the caption said, "In honor of Blonde Hair Day, post your favorite blonde." Both her boyfriend and I are blonde, and she has brunette hair. I did not say anything about the post when I saw it. I am a pretty non-confrontational person, and it totally makes sense why she posted it, seeing as he is one of her favorite people. I just thought that for something like this, she would have posted me too, because we have been there for each other forever. It is not like she could have forgotten about me either because, for once in quite a long time, I had a good conversation with her over the phone. The post was made within an hour of me getting off the phone with her. I was not too hurt because she is allowed to post him on her story, as she frequently does. I did not mention anything to her because I really did not want to hurt our friendship. Fast forward to now. The other day, I posted a similar thing to what she had about my boyfriend, who is brunette just like her. My post was also a picture of him and me with the appreciation post chain story thing, with the caption, "Post a brunette who makes you smile." At this point, I had completely forgotten about her post since it had been a month and did not think anything of it. When she saw the story, she replied to it saying, "Don't I make you smile?" Her message had a rude demeanor, and I was caught off guard by what she had said. Not wanting to create drama or problems between the two of us, I quickly deleted my story and made a collage with photos of both of them. My prior post excluding her had nothing to do with her post previously, nor me getting revenge on her. I was just surprised when she almost snapped at me for something like that. She has not confronted the situation anymore since I posted her too, but I have noticed that now she has been more ignorant and blunt to me. So am I the jerk? You did nothing to be ashamed of. If she didn't think of you for her story thread and only posted her boyfriend, why should she be allowed to criticize you for not posting her on a similar thread almost a month later? It's clear you weren't being petty, just showing appreciation for your boyfriend. If she keeps being angry, try explaining your thoughts without mentioning her story first, and if needed, gently remind her of her own post. Am I the jerk for not trying to support my autistic friend anymore? My friend asked if she could stay at my place for a few days. She would ask that we do things she wanted to do, which I did not mind doing. However, she refused to walk to where she wanted to go, so we could end up always taking the bus, though it did not always turn up. One of the days she asked if we could go to London, but later told me she wanted me to fund the whole trip. I work 2 jobs, and she only gets $100 every week and has bills to pay. I declined as I had my own bills to pay, and I was already feeling upset by her demands. We went out for a family meal to celebrate my grandmother's birthday and invited my friend as we did not want her to be home alone. Naomi asked if she could order a share plate for herself, which was around $40, $50. My mother saw me get upset by the request and kindly told her we had ordered 3 share plates already between the family to share, as well as individual plates. When our food came, Naomi kept giving me a pouty face as she realized she would have to pick her own food. At the end of the meal, I thanked my parents for paying for our meals, and I had to remind her to say thank you too. When we were leaving, she told me she wanted to wait to get the train back. We already paid for our return tickets that day, but she did not want to walk to the station, so we ended up waiting nearly 2 to 3 hours for a bus to turn up. During our wait, I told her we would have already been at the station if we had started walking, as it was about a 15 to 20 minute walk, and it was getting pretty dark and late by this point. By the time we got home, it was 10:30 p.m., and we had finished the meal by 6:00 p.m. By this point, I was really upset as she was not listening to me, so I asked her to leave my house. Some people have called me a jerk as I have not been that supportive of her or tried to help her understand social standards and asked her to leave at night. It's understandable that frustration built up due to unclear boundaries. Explicitly setting limits like, "You need to fund your own way," or "I will not wait for you beyond X time," would have helped. People on the spectrum have different needs, but they need to recognize when they conflict with others' social cues. It's not your responsibility to manage her behavior, and prioritizing your own well-being is important. Aita for helping my sibling look for our parents even though I know the truth. I am a 20-year-old man, and I am struggling with a difficult situation involving my 17-year-old brother. My brother, whom I will call Carson, and I have always been very close growing up. We were raised by our grandparents. Carson has always been obsessed with finding out what happened to our parents, especially once he became a teenager. He was always told that our parents loved us, and as much as I love our grandparents, they led him to believe that our parents were still alive. Our parents died when I was 9 years old and Carson was 6 years old in a car accident. I was at home with my grandparents, and Carson was in the car. Somehow, he survived despite the accident being severe. Unfortunately, our parents were not as lucky. When we got to the hospital, my grandparents were taken to Carson, and he was asleep for a while. I was still pretty young and cannot remember everything, but I do remember it took him a couple of days to wake up. Once he did, he had no memory of being in the car. His last memory was of what he ate that morning. The doctors said it might be trauma and that it was best to let him take in a bit of information at a time. My grandfather insisted we never tell Carson about our parents to spare him the pain, and I listened. Over the years, I watched them lie to him, and he started to develop a negative image of our parents, who were amazing people. Now, at 17 years old, he's really poking around, and I am sure he will figure it out sooner or later. I have been helping look for our parents. It really hurts me because whenever I want to tell him, I am afraid he will react badly. The only reason my parents went out with him that day was because he threw a tantrum and wanted to spend time with both of them. I was sick, so I could not go. Everyone in my family calls it a miracle, but in my head, it really was not. I have decided to tell him recently, but my grandfather says that if I do, I am a horrible brother because I would be making him relive his childhood trauma. I truly believe he should know, and I cannot keep it a secret anymore. I feel like a horrible person. So, am I the antagonist here? You acted correctly, and the grandparents have really put this person in an awful position. They could have simply mentioned that the parents had passed away without going into all the details. It's important to tell the truth, just that the parents died in a car crash, and apologize for hiding the truth. Even though it's not their fault, they should be prepared for the brother to be angry, but coming clean now might help salvage the relationship. Am I the jerk for reaching out to my boyfriend's ex? My boyfriend, James, and I have been together for 2 years, and up until recently, we have had a very healthy, communicative, and loving relationship. James had a serious relationship before he met me with Carrie, who is 28 years old. They were together for 4 years and had been broken up for over a year when I met James. Last month, Carrie reached out to James on Instagram, saying she has been going through a really hard time, that her life was falling apart, and she felt she had no one else to talk to. A few days after this, Carrie called him while the two of us were together. He explained to me why she had initially reached out, and that if she was calling him, it must be pretty serious. He did ask me if it was okay that he took the phone call, and because he seemed genuinely concerned for her, I said of course. Carrie now calls him a few times a week, and they text constantly. I have expressed my discomfort around his continuous contact with his ex, and he says that he is worried for her mental health, and that all he is doing is offering her a place to vent. Even though it has made me more and more uncomfortable, I feel like it would be wrong of me to demand that he stops talking to her. I do not really have any major ex-boyfriends, so I do not have a lot of context for keeping in contact with an ex or anything. The other day, she called him, and he went into the other room to take the call. He came back out a few minutes later, very dejected, saying he had no idea how to help her in her current situation. He said he is pretty sure she does not have any friends right now, which is why she keeps contacting him. He specifically said, "I think she really needs a girlfriend to talk to." I found her Instagram and sent her a message, saying that if she needed another person to just blindly vent to, I would be happy to lend an ear. Almost immediately, I got a message back from her, and she was furious, saying that I had no business reaching out to her and demanding to know her personal life. She said she was angry at James for spilling her life drama to me and that I needed to mind my own business. I told her that James had not told me any specifics, just that there was a lot going on. She blocked me and called James, who then got very angry at me for intervening in her personal life. We got into a fight, and I told him again that I have expressed how uncomfortable I am at him being her sole emotional support, and that he has continued to talk to her anyway instead of offering other mental health solutions. He said I have no business telling him he cannot talk to someone and that I overstepped in reaching out to her. That fight was last night, and James said he needs to cool down before we discuss it again. Am I the asshole? It seems like there are a lot of red flags here, especially with him taking calls in another room, and her reaction to your message. His defensiveness and secrecy don't sit right, and her anger at you for reaching out suggests she might have ulterior motives. While you may have overstepped by contacting her, your intentions were good, and you have every right to express your discomfort with how this is affecting you. It's worth having an open conversation with your boyfriend about including you in this friendship to ensure transparency and maintain trust in your relationship. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.